Okay, guys, I'm back to do my UFC 125 review. I haven't done one in a while. So I'm gonna run through what I talk about. I talk about what happened in the fight, what I saw, what I think about it, and what's next for the winner and the loser. I also give 4 awards out, my personal awards: fight of the night, performance of the night, knockout of the night, and submission of the night. So let's get this started. Let's give out the awards. Fight of the night I gave to the main event: Frank Yeager and Grant Maynard. They fight to a draw, but it was a great fight. When this first was announced, I think a lot of people were a little, it's gonna be a boring fight. They're not exciting fighters, but they showed everyone wrong, and it was a great fight. Performance of the night I gave to Dustin Poirier, his unanimous decision over Josh Grisby. Josh Grisby was supposed to fight Jose Aldo. Aldo got hurt. In came Dustin Poirier, and I think he surprised a lot of people. I think some hardcore fans. Me personally, I gave a shot to Dustin Poirier. Some people did pick Poirier to win, but the way he did it, he just utterly dominated Josh Grisby, and it was a great performance. Knockout of the night, I gave it to Brian Stan with his knockout over Chris Lieben. He just knockout Jeremy Stevens. I guess a lot of people probably give it to that. But Brian Stan just dominated Chris Lieben from from beginning to end, start to finish. He was just the better striker. The way he was striking was great. The way he was moving was great. Everything was great for Brian Stan. For him to finish the way he did with a great, tough Chris Lieben, I give him knockout of the night. Submission of the night, people also gave that one to Clay Guida over Takanori Gomi, but I gave mine to Daniel Roberts. Roberts was, he wasn't. I don't know. I just gave Roberts because it was a good submission. The Kimura over Greg Soto. I thought he was losing the fight. But I'll talk about that fight when I get to it. But I just thought Daniel Roberts' submission was a little better than Clay Guida's. Okay. So let's get on. Let's get on to me discussing the event. I'm gonna go from top to bottom. First one, main event. Grant Maynard, Frank Yeager taking on Grant Maynard. Wow. First round, easily 10-8 for Grant Maynard. He just dominated Frank Yeager. Hurt him multiple times, dropped him multiple times. Some people were discussing a 10-7. I don't know. I really don't believe in a 10-7. I guess if you do believe in him, that could probably be one, but I don't know. I give it 10-8 for Grant Maynard. In came the second round, and Frankie Edgar just 180. He was the better striker. He was moving well. He was sticking and moving. He was landing more of the punches. He was throwing more punches. It was just a much, much better round for Frankie Edgar. I gave that 10-9. I thought, on a side note, after the second round and in the intermission between the second and third, Randy Couture was pissed off at Grant Maynard. That's the most pissed off I've ever seen Randy, and I didn't even know Randy could get mad, but he did. I thought it was actually quite funny. But in came the third round, and it was a close round. I won't get, it was really close. Frankie was doing good. Pretty much the same thing he did in the second round at the beginning. He was moving well. He was striking well, but then towards the middle of the round, he kind of stood in place, and Maynard caught him. Landed a good. I think it was an overhand. Was it a right? I think it was right hook, overhand right. Hurt Maynard pretty good. And then Maynard gets the takedown. Edgar stands right back up, and then Maynard just takes him right back down. Edgar tries to get a guillotine, but it was at the end of the round. It wasn't really there. I give the round to Maynard 10-9, but it was a close round. In came the fourth, and Edgar did it again, man. He lost the third round probably, and he started off great. He started striking. He got a takedown on Grant Maynard. I think Frankie was going to take him down. I think he surprised Maynard with that. And easily the best round for Frankie Edgar. His striking was better, and his takedowns. Mixing his striking with his takedowns, easily 10-9 for Frankie Edgar. And then came the fifth and final round. I gave it a 10-10 draw in this one. It was just, I couldn't give it to Frankie. I couldn't give it to Gray. I think they both did what they had to do to win it. So, a very, very close round. But with them both throwing and connecting, both of them, 10-10. And so the fight, I gave it to Grant Maynard 48-47 with the first round 10-8, and then the third and the fifth being 10-10. And then Edgar winning the second and fourth. So I don't know, man. I can see it as a draw of the fight, but I don't know. I thought just I think Gray just did more damage than Frankie did. But it was a great performance, great showing for both fighters. I'm excited for the rematch, which is obviously going to happen. So I mean, what's next for Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard? The rematch. But I think I threw another fighter in here because what about Anthony Pettis, who was supposed to get the next shot? Frankie's pretty hurt. I don't know about Gray. He didn't look too hurt out there. But it's going to be a while before they fight again, and then they got to wait for Anthony Pettis. Got to wait for the winner of that one. It's a long ways away, and I really don't think Anthony Pettis wants to be on the shelf that long. So who should Anthony Pettis fight? I mean, maybe a rematch with Ben Henderson, but Ben Henderson has a fight with Mark. I think it's Boshek. Is it? I think it is at UFC 129. It was announced, I think, today. Bosek, yeah, it was Bosek. But maybe Joe Stevenson, he could fight Joe, or Rafael Dos Anjos. I mean, I don't think Anthony Pettis should be on the shelf for that long. I think he should get back in the cage, so he doesn't get cage rest. But a great main event, nonetheless. It was awesome. Great way to start out the new year. The co-main event, Chris Leben versus Brian Stann. Obviously, Stan won by first round TKO as I gave him the knockout of the night. Stan just from start to finish was landing great shots. He was moving well. He just wasn't sitting in front of Chris Leben. When they clinched up, I thought they were throwing uppercuts. I thought Stan was getting the better of that. When they clinched up, I thought the grappling part, Stan was getting the better of that. I just all the way around. I mean, it was just a great fight for Brian Stann. Stan tries a body kick. Chris Leben catches it. Tries a takedown, but very unsuccessful. And then Stan lands a big left hand that hurts Leben. Leben tries to move forward, but gets caught again and gets dropped. Leben recovers like he always does. He has a hard chin, but gets caught again. And then gets it with the guillotine. And then Stan releases it and just starts throwing and landing punches. And then he lands that big knee that just drops him, and then the fight's over. I think Stan's move to Jackson's MMA just in Albuquerque was the biggest plus in his career. I mean, I think the sky's the limit for Brian Stann. He's a really good fighter. I think he keeps looking better and better every time. Leben, he has a good chin, but I just don't see him beating the top tier. I just don't see him beating top 10 middleweights. I mean, I just don't. I'm not saying Brian Stann's a top 10 middleweight, but I mean, Chris Leben's, I think he's always going to be a gatekeeper, and that's who Leben is. What's next for Brian Stann? He called out Wanderlei Silva. That's after the fight. He wanted him. In an interview, he said, if he doesn't get Wanderlei, maybe the loser of Jorge Rivera, Michael Bisping, which is at UFC 127. I think that's in New Jersey, by the way. No, that's in Australia. My bad. And then Nate Marquardt. I know it's a long shot, but Nate's coming off a loss. That's a big step up for Brian Stann. Big step up, but sooner or later he's gonna have to fight top tier middleweights if he wants to become the champ. What's next for Chris Leben? Kendall Grove. I know they're both coming off losses. I think that'd be a good. I know Kendall Grove doesn't have the greatest chin, but man, that reach of his and his grappling is really good. And I think he's a better grappler than Chris Leben. Or maybe the loser, CB Dalloway, Mark Munoz, which is on Verse. I think it's at the end of March. No, beginning of March. I forgot. Or maybe Alan Belcher. I know Alan Belcher's hurt, but I think he's getting better. So I don't know. Next one, Brandon Vera taking on Thiago Silva. This fight, I'm not gonna say I'm bummed out about it, but I just thought that I'm a fan. I'm a Brandon Vera fan, and three things came out. One, Thiago Silva, great performance. He was the bigger and stronger fighter, and he used that, and he had a great game plan. On the feet, he was getting busted up. He was stand up. If this was a stand up fight, I thought easily Brandon Vera was probably going to win it. But Thiago Silva's game plan was to take him down and use his strength, use his being a bigger fighter, and he did that great. Brandon Vera, he just couldn't get off the back. Couldn't get back, on his feet. From the beginning of the second round, the beginning of the third, he was just clearly the better striker, but it just didn't work out for Brandon Vera. Thiago Silva, I mean, he looked a lot better than his last fight against Rashad Evans. So, but another thing, I said three things. It was Steve Mazzagatti, man. No discredit to Thiago Silva. Great job, great performance. But man, in the second round, I see. I think it was at the 3 minute mark or near the 3 minute mark. Fight should have been stood up, man. They were doing nothing. Silva was not trying to, advance. Sometimes, you're on the ground. You shouldn't stand up the fight. The fighters are trying to advance their position. He wasn't advancing. He wasn't throwing. He wasn't doing nothing. Um, and then in the third, I mean, besides the beginning where Vera was busting up Silva at the stand up, Silva was on his back the entire time. I mean, he was playing the bongo drums on Brandon Vera's back. If I was referee and I saw that, I'd be like, okay, we're done, stand up. But not Steve Mazzagatti. I mean, I don't know. I really don't like to criticize refs, but man, I agree with Dana White, and he's probably the worst MMA ref ever. I mean, this guy's just horrible. And there's been some like local refs that have done UFC, and I don't know, man. Steve Mazzagatti has kind of turned into one of them. But no discredit to Thiago Silva. Great game plan. Good job. He used his strength. But man, Mazzagatti ruined that fight for me. What's next for? I'll discuss one thing. I am a Brandon Vera fan, but I was pretty pissed off with the beginning of the third round. He dropped Thiago Silva with, I think it was a leg kick, or he could have slipped or whatever. Silva, fell on his back, and what did Brandon Vera do? He threw his hands up like this. What the hell are you doing, dude? I don't know, man. I was really pissed off with that, and I was about to just, walk away, man. I was mad. But, as you know, I'm a huge Brandon Vera fan, so. But what's next with Thiago Silva? The first thing that popped into my head, I don't know why, was Quentin Rampage Jackson. I don't know why. Thiago Silva probably just take him down, but I don't know, man. Just Rampage, maybe the loser of Jones and Bader, which takes place at 126, or Phil Davis. They also ain't taking down Phil Davis, and I don't know. But I think Thiago Silva, great performance, but he needs to step up the competition and see what he can do. What's next with Brandon Vera? Obviously, I don't think he's going to get released. I think the only person that's got released so far is Phil Baroni. But this is his third loss in a row. And the first person that popped into my head after Vera lost, Stephan Bonner. That's it, man. Stephan Bonner, Brandon Vera. I think that'd be a great fight. I think I don't think Stephan Bonner can take Vera down, and I think it'll just be a stand-up fight. And Stephan Bonner's a tough-ass guy, and I don't know. So Brandon Vera, Stephan Bonner, I think it would be a great fight. Next fight, Nate Diaz taking on Dun Hun Kim. The story of this fight, I think, was just Kim, he wins a unanimous decision, and he was much bigger than Nate Diaz, very similar to the Brandon Vera Thiago Silva. Silva being bigger than Vera and Kim just being bigger than Diaz. On the feet, Nate Diaz was the better striker. I thought he was doing a good job, but once it hit the ground, Kim was just too big. He was very technical. When Diaz tried to throw up submissions, Kim would, posture up. He would move. He wouldn't get caught. He wouldn't stay in a position that long. He was always trying to advance. So it was a great performance by Dun Hun Kim. Wasn't the greatest. I mean, I wouldn't, be calling out, was he calling out St. Pierre? Who was he calling out? I think he was calling out George St. Pierre. I don't think he's ready for him. I don't know, man. I'm not really sold on Kim yet, but he is a good fighter. He is undefeated. His loss to Kara Parisian did get overturned. So I just think the story of the fight was Diaz was winning the stand-up, but once it hit the ground, Kim was just too big, too technical for Diaz. And if it was any other welterweight, I think Diaz would have gotten submission and would have submitted someone. But Kim was just technical and did a good job. What's next for Kim? I think maybe the winner of Diego Sanchez, Martin Kampmann, which takes place on Verse when they go back there. John Hathaway, but I think John Hathaway has a fight now. Or maybe the winner of Carlos Condon, Chris Lytle. What's next for Diaz? I did put Roy McDonald, but McDonald is also bigger than him, so maybe that wouldn't be a good fight. But also he has a fight. Maybe the winner of Mike Pyle, Ricardo Romero, that probably makes more sense. Or maybe Mike Pierce. I know Mike Pierce has a fight against... who does he have, man? I made a video earlier, and I was mad that I didn't know who he was fighting. Now I don't know. But Mike Pierce, I think it would be a good matchup for him. It would be a good job for Mike Pierce. It would be a step up in competition. Mike Pierce is taking on the newcomer Kenny Robertson at UFC 126. So it's it's coming up. I think the It's only a month difference, so I think it'd be a good fight. I think Mike Pierce is gonna win that fight anyways. So there you go. Next one, Clay Guida versus Takanori Gomi. It was the first fight of the pay-per-view. Guida wins by second round submission. It was a guillotine. It was a great fight for Clay Guida. Clay Guida did a good job. Man, I look fat. I am fat, but hey. Back to the fight. I think from when Clay Guida got into the cage and he did his normal, non-stop, very active. He was moving his head crazy like. It just threw Gomi off. I think him landing that head kick in the first round was big. And as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, Gomi's out of this. He's confused. He's out of his game. It's over. Clay Guida was either going to submit him or he's going to get a decision. That's what he did. Second round came around. Great. Gomi lands a left, but we really didn't do much. Guida attempts to take down Gomi spalls, but Guida hangs in and continues to try for the takedown. The relentlessness of Guida was just, I think, just too much for Gomi. The one thing Guida was also, man, his striking looked very improved. He landed some good combinations against Gomi too. And then on the ground they would move around, and Guida he looked great. I mean, on the ground, just grappling wise. So it was a great submission for Clay Guida. I think now Clay Guida needs to move up to fight to the upper tier. What's next for Clay Guida? I think maybe Sean Shirk. I think that'd be a good matchup. Maybe the winner of Jim Miller, Kamal Shalores. I know Jim Miller's saying he's the third best lightweight, but we have the rematch with Gray Maynard, and then after that it's Anthony Pettis, and then he's got to wait for that. That's a long time. Miller's gonna have to fight at least probably 2 more fights before he even gets close to a title shot. I think a fight with Clay Guida would be a good matchup for Miller if he beats Kamal Shalores. And then they also said Donald Cerrone, but Donald Cerrone took a place. Who did he replace? Donald Cerrone took. I know. It was announced today. He's replacing someone. I think on the Fight Night card. Oh, I didn't put it on here. Damn it. But Cerrone is fighting, I think, on the Fight Night. No, I think at 126. I don't know, but he's fighting recently, pretty soon. So maybe Cerrone wins that one. He fights Cerrone. What's next for Gomi? Just like on the website, I think it was MMA Junkie. He's gonna be a gatekeeper. I think he's past his prime, but he's still a dangerous opponent for anyone. Maybe the loser of Melvin Gillard, Evan Dunham, which takes place here in a few weeks. Fight for the troops down in Fort Hood. Maybe Joe Lawson. Good test for Joe. Then the winner tonight, Jeremy Stevens, the comeback there. I think maybe a good fight for Gomi. A good test for Stevens too to face Gomi. And speaking of Jeremy Stevens, that is the next fight I'll be discussing. He took on Marcus Davis. Man, Davis is doing a good job before the third round. He was mixing his striking and his takedowns. He did a great job countering the aggressive striker and Jeremy Stevens. I think his countering was just, was the story of the fight before he got knocked out. He was just much more technical striking-wise than Stevens, and he showed it. But Stevens, like always, had a good heart and showed that he had power, and that was a huge knockout. He always pushed forward, and it got him the win there. Like I said, what's next for Stevens? Takanori Gomi, you got Charles Oliveira, maybe Mac Danzig. He's coming off a win against Joe Stevenson. What's next for Davis? It was a good fight for Davis, but maybe a fight against Paul Taylor. I know Taylor has a fight coming up. Bart Palczewski, he just got signed. I think that'd be a great fight for him. Marcus Davis versus Bart Palczewski, or the veteran Aaron Riley. He's still on the UFC roster, so there's a lot of things for Davis. I don't think he's done. If he loses one more time, then yeah, I think Davis should retire. But once again, Davis, I think he's going to be a gatekeeper at 155. I really don't see him fighting the top tier. Next one, Josh Grisby versus Dustin Poirier. Poirier won it by unanimous decision. Utter dominance on the feet for Dustin Poirier over Grisby. I mean, just on the feet, he was just dominating Grisby. He mixes punches and kicks very well. He also very good in the clinch. I thought maybe that's where Grisby would want to take the fight on the feet, would be in the clinch, but on the clinch, Poirier was the better fighter. Even on the ground, he wasn't too shabby. Almost got caught with a few submissions, but he did the smart thing and he stood back up. And won the fight on the feet. Um, but great performance by Poirier. Very dangerous stand-up fighter. Um, and I think he's a very dangerous opponent at 145. Grisby, he needs to find a striking coach, man, because he's a dangerous fighter on the ground, man. He almost submitted Poirier, but, I mean, if he just can get some good striking, he's a dangerous 145er. What's next for Poirier? I think maybe Diego Nunes, who won Saturday also. The winner of Mark Hominick and George Roop, they fight at the fight night in a few weeks. Or maybe Manny Gambarian. He hasn't been officially signed, but he was still on the roster when, they merged. What's next for Grisby? I don't know, man. I really don't know. I mean, I put Cub Swanson, Ian Loveland, and Pablo Garza, but I mean, Grisby needs to find a striking coach, and until then, man, he's a one-trick pony, and that's the ground game. What's Phil Baroni versus Brad Tavares? Tavares won by first round TKO. That was a great performance by Tavares, by the way. He was close to my performance of the night, but I think Poirier was just better. Baroni dropped Tavares with a big left, and had a mean choke, man. It wasn't very technical, but you could see Tavares was kind of like, oh shit, I better spin out of this, and he did. And he did a good job. He took down, I think, Phil Baroni. Phil Baroni took down Tavares, and Tavares did a really good job just staying calm. And then when they stood back up, he landed that huge head kick, and then just started unloading, kind of like what Baroni did to, what's his name, Dave Manet back in the day, until the ref stopped it. But, I mean, he got dropped and then stopped it. So, great performance by Tavares, but it looked like he was kind of flabby, kind of like me. Not as much because I'm more fat, but he didn't just look as cut. I thought maybe he could make 170. Baroni, he did look good, but, I guess he did get cut. But I think Tavares could be better at 170. He could, be a bigger fighter. But if he goes 170, I think maybe the winner of Dwayne Ludwig, Amir Sadala. You got Brian Foster, maybe the winner of Mike Guyman, DeMarcus Johnson, which takes place in a few weeks. If he stays at 185, you got Miller with Nick Cantone, Dan Miller, and Ed Herman. He is supposed to make his return here shortly, and I think Brad Tavares versus Ed Herman would be a great fight for Ed Herman to come back to. And it'd be a good test against Brad Tavares. What's next for Phil Baroni? I did have Ryan Jensen, the loser of Alessio Sakara, Falco, or Dong Yi Yang, but he got cut. I don't know where he goes. Maybe Strikeforce. Fights in Japan. Mike Brown versus Diego Nunes. I did not get to see this, but Nunes did win by split decision. Because I didn't see it, I'm not going to be discussing it. I'm not going to take another person's word on it. I got to watch it in my own eyes, but I didn't get to see it. Daniel Roberts versus Greg Soto. We did get to see them. Roberts won by first round submission. Roberts, he landed quick right in the beginning of the fight. I don't know if a lot of people caught that. But right after that, Soto was the much better striker. Lands a big right, kind of wobbled Roberts, but once it hit the ground, Soto did an okay job, and then Roberts just showed that he's just a much better grappler. And he pulled off the Kimura, kind of turned him around, and Soto had a tap. So what's next for Roberts? I think a great fight would be Claude Patrick. Maybe John Howard's just a little too soon for him. But like I said, with the Baroni, maybe the winner, with Brad Tavares, the winner of Ludwig Sadala. What's next for Soto? Matt Riddle, I think it'd be a good fight for him. I think they're both. I don't think Riddle could take Soto down. And I think he's a better striker than Riddle. So Sean Pearson, he's coming off that fight of the night with Matt Riddle. Maybe James Wilk, but James Wilkes has a fight. I forgot who he's fighting, but he's probably down the road. Then the last fight, which was the very first fight of the night, Jacob Volkman versus Antonio McKee. Volkman won by split decision. Like I said, didn't see it, so I'm not going to discuss it. So, there you go. There's my UFC 125 review. It was a good card. Great way to start the new year. And, yeah, so there you go. First review of the year. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm out of here. Going to bed. It's nighttime. So see you later. Enjoy the day.